Dear diarrhea, diary full of shit. Just play along. Me, myself, and I. No one else. Show you I'm so legit. Hey, Katie Boo. Um, I know you listen to me, a lot, and you hang on my every word and all that. I didn't eat anything. I'm just sort of whatever. I'm gonna cook some stuff. Um, I got my vegetables all chopped up and whatnot. But I got to make a grocery store run. I want to buy some mashed potatoes. Um, Actually, I think I'll skip because I've got, the powdered mashed potatoes. So I might as well use them. Well, I guess maybe I don't need to go to the grocery store because I still got a fair amount of flavored seltzer left. Because I'm going to make enough food for today and tomorrow. And then I'm going to fast, for 3 days. And I'm going to like completely fast. I'm not even going to do the protein shake thing just so I can get, kind of do what I need to do. Like I said, with the CPAP thing, I looked it up and it did say alcohol affects that. Because, like I said, it's not a fat neck thing, it's like a diaphragm thing, which is worse for me because if it were a fat neck thing, I just lose weight, which I do need to lose weight anyway. I mean, I'm not a grotesque, hideous beast, but I'm not, in Guido the Speedo torpedo shape either. But but like I said, I went on like a bender, the weekend, I went and had my sleep test done like on a Monday, and I bendered on like Friday and Saturday night, and stuff. And I'm hoping maybe that has something to do with it. Probably not. I don't think I could get that lucky. I think I wasted all my luck on, 5 out of 6 lotto numbers and only winning $1,200. So I guess that's the universe saying, I'm not gonna say that. Plus, I don't, I'm not big on the woo woo, but like I said, I've been saying that for years. I've thought about, if someday I find out the news that I've got stage 3 or stage 4 cancer or some sort of tumor, um, it'll suck. It'll be a dark, dark day, and it'll suck. The rest of my life will suck. I will be depressed and sad. Um, but better me than somebody else. Not to sound like a martyr, but that's the truth. As far as the odds go, Although these days more and more young people are coming down with cancer and tumors and stuff because of all the electronic devices and I mean the radiation isn't like super bad, I mean, it is what it is, but it is something to keep in mind, if you constantly have your phone, next to a part of your body, maybe you carry it, next to your balls or your ovaries or your heart, or you're one of these people, like these truck drivers are, have an earpiece in their ear all fucking day. That's affecting them. Okay, that's not natural. Humans did not. That's something that has been on the scene very recently. As far as human history goes, and our bodies, no bodies, never mind human bodies, any biological machine with that energy source known as a soul or a spirit inhabiting that meat suit, we don't handle, radio waves and shit like that very well. Magnetic, electromagnetic waves and stuff. It fucks up our cells. It makes them go haywire. And the problem is, it doesn't like directly just kill them and it's like, okay, well, that's it. The body will sweep those away and whatever. however that works. It's like it mutates them, you know, and cells are, you know, designed to make copies of themselves and divide and whatnot, and that's how cancer starts, and tumors and whatnot. And your body is designed to fight that off. And the best way to do that is to have a healthy, robust body. So, Katie Boo, you know, you're set up pretty good, you know, as far as health and fitness goes. But sometimes shit just goes awry. Plus, just because you know, look healthy and maybe are healthy, maybe you have a bad habit, you know. Maybe you drink too much, you know. So anyway, not to be a downer, but you know, I do think about my mortality. You know, every day. I think about getting in knife fights and getting jumped and getting stabbed and getting beat up and having to fight, you know, somebody twice my size and twice my strength and twice my skill level. I don't know why I do that. It's not an insecure thing. It's not a, you know, I think I'm a tough guy thing. It's just something that I do every day. Um, so you would think that I would want to grab life by the pussy, you know, and live it to the fullest, but I don't. So, um, I stumbled across a thing. It must have been. I swear to God, you know, it's well, maybe you know, the algorithms and stuff. They, you know, I talk about stuff and then I find it. You know, later it shows up. It was a Delta Force thing. You know about, you know, it was a short, and it was actually what. Oh, it was something like what happens, you know, when Delta operators quit or something like that. And it showed a section of like knife fighting. I guess you're allowed to just quit, walk off, just like it's voluntary to, you know, join. Um, you know, all that stuff. Um, but you know, you can't. It's everything's classified. You can't, you know, this you can't open up a, you know, a tactical, you know, school, you know, as a civilian. You know how sometimes like Navy SEALs will do that. You know, former Navy SEAL join my survival course. You know, it's like you can't do that as a Delta operator, I guess. And apparently they are the best of the best. You know, just the level that they're at is superhuman. I mean, it is the absolute maximum of human capacity. Um, so, and you know, I don't really watch a whole lot of that Navy SEAL stuff or Ranger stuff or anything like that. Green Beret, Delta, but apparently Delta's the best. So the Army has the most services because apparently there's a difference between Rangers and Green Berets. I don't know what it is. I'll have to look it up. And they have Delta. You know, Navy has the SEALs, which like is like its own thing. You know, it's like, you know, you're on a ship, and then they have these elite groups. You know, it's like if you're in the army, you know, it's like at least you were infantry. You know, it's like you're already used to moving, shooting, and communicating. You know, in the Navy, it's like, hey, you want to be a, you know, this here, shit. You know, talk about changing lanes. But and then the Air Force has like the paratrooper rescue, which is rescue, I guess, not combat type stuff. And the Marines have the Marine Recon, which, as the name implies, they're not actually designed to actually function as a combat unit, as far as I know. But they are, you know, you send a group of, you know, 4 guys or whatever, you know, behind enemy lines. So obviously they're highly trained operatives. But that's not really kind of what they do. And I guess I remember Terry Papepetit talking about, you know, the Rangers being force amplifiers. And I guess what that means is, you know, you can send out a platoon of Rangers or whatever to, you know, kick some ass and do stuff. But then, you know, in their quote unquote, you know, not so busy season, for lack of a better word, they might put one Ranger, you know, with like a regular platoon of soldiers to, like, I don't know, get them up to speed. I don't know. I wasn't in the service. But, and like I said, I didn't know there was a difference between a Ranger and a Green Beret, but apparently there is. But anyway, there's this guy, he's called like the Sheriff of Baghdad or whatever. He's this former Delta dude. I don't know. You know, yeah, it is what it is. Katie Boo, you like, trained killers, that type of shit turn you on. Maybe you want to go, check that out. I don't know. Well, I'm sitting there talking about it, I don't really watch that stuff, but I'm a male of the human species. So I look at that, and I'm like, shit, there's several things that go through my mind, First I compare myself to that. It's like, no. And then it's like, compare myself to like, could I ever be that? Like if I wanted to be, because I wanted to be, a commando when I was a kid. I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. When I was like 12, 13 years old, I started drown proofing myself. We didn't have the internet so much back then, but I talked to a Navy recruiter and he gave me the warning order, right? He gave me the packet. So I read that. So that's what I was going off of. The phases and prepping and, shit like that. And, but yeah, I would go to the rec center and the water world, had the drown proofing down, my legs weren't, hands and feet weren't actually tied, and it was only 9-foot pool instead of 10, but you had that down. Just the bobbing, there wasn't people fucking with me and ripping my mask off and shit, but well, I didn't have a mask, but. And then the best thing I think that I did was I would lay on my stomach facing into the waves. It was an intermittent wave machine, and I would lay out there deep enough where the waves would crash over my head. So it would fill my nostrils and my ears, and I'd have pressure on my throat, and I'd have to, and quickly blow that out, take a breath, which is like still got a little bit of water and stuff in it, and then boom, the next wave would crash over me. They don't do anything like that. Well, actually, they spend a lot of time sitting out there in the waves in the shore or whatever, in their brown, what do they call them? Oh, no, that was Jocko. Yeah, Ranger panties or whatever. They wear these little shorts. The SEALs do the same thing, and those white shirts and stuff. But anyway, one day I was laying out on a deck, and I didn't hear a voice or anything. It wasn't like a magical moment, but I just decided, nah, you don't want to be a commando. You want to be a truck driver. And obviously here I am living life to the fullest, living my best life now. But anyway, so as a male of the human species, it's like that's, there's always like comparison, you know what I mean? And, just like an analytic, like I said, the max of human capacity, but as a female, I don't really give no shit about that, muscles, talk about a protector, but, yeah, I don't know. Or some chicks are like, no, I don't like the meatheads. I don't like the macho-ness. I need a little bit more softness. Most chicks, they're all about, the guy who can, kill the zombies and change the diapers. They kind of want a well-rounded, what have you. Somebody who, whatever, treats everybody else like shit, but treats her good, and kind of every now and then treats her a little bad, but not like real bad, and is kind of controlling and tells her what to do, but is also supportive and So, have you heard this, sweet Katie Boo? Like the 7 things that like women secretly like fantasize about? You can look it up because I forget, but I know it's a werewolf, a pirate. Pirate almost makes sense. Really? Well, it depends on what kind of pirate it is. Is it Captain Jack Sparrow? Or is it one of them ragged ass motherfuckers, or that can't keep his eye from falling out of his head? Again, the difference between, a stalker and a sexy motherfucker is whether or not he's attractive. The difference between whether or not it's sexual harassment and, ooh, take me home and, ride hard and put me away wet, daddy, is whether or not, she's attracted to him. So. But that makes sense, I get it. Well, duh. So, you know, I'm not one of those guys. Well, fuck you, whores. You know, it's only because he's hot. Duh. Want to fuck that ragged ass fat chick over there? No. So, like that comedian, you know, talking about simps and incels, you know, and she was like, I hate to be mean, you know, but if you can't cut it in society, maybe it's best that you don't pass your genes on. Guess I'd have to agree. You know, you want a bunch of Ben and Brian's running around? You know, they form on their own enough as it is. So, I mean, I guess we need them. Otherwise, you know, tech wouldn't flow as good as it does. But, you know, you need those guys to come install your shit. But, anyway, I think one of them was like, I don't know, I want to say a power broker, whatever that even is. You know, my mind goes to, you mean a salesman for the power company? You know, XL or United Power? I'm a power broker. This is why you want to go with us. We have the highest quality product at the lowest rate. This is how we ensure that we never lose service. And if this goes down, we got backup, you know, stations. And, you know, we get our coal, you know, from the mine that's only, you know, 50 miles up the road, and this is how we keep our costs low. That's what I think when you say power broker. But power, more power. Two Man Taylor, you know. But I don't know. I don't know what a power broker does. I knew at one point because I looked it up because I didn't know, and now I've since forgot. I think maybe doctor and lawyer was one of them, maybe. But anyway, kind of like powerful, you know, whatever. So, you know, that whole machismo, masculine energy, you know, the guy on the cologne commercial or the watch commercial, that guy, you know, square jaw, you know, Giga Chad, you know. You could probably find it, look it up if you want to. But Katie Boo. Like there was a commercial, I think it was for a watch where this guy showed up in like a fucking P-51 Mustang, and the girl showed up like on a motorcycle, right? And the girl shows up first, so it's like, ooh, bad bitch. But then the guy shows up in a motherfucking all silver P-51 Mustang. You know, got the big four prop, you know, propeller, you know, blah blah blah, and they have a little exchange and whatever, a little rendezvous. Maybe they're spies, you know, and you know, oh, I wonder what time it is. James Bond needs to check his watch, and you know, it's blah blah blah. It's probably. I'm gonna try looking it up. You might want to as well, you know, if you're if you want to. But shit like that, you know. The guy was over jacket, you know, swung over his shoulder, you know, just, or whatever it's called. But kind of forgot where I was going with this. But basically, this is all I had to say after all that other epic shit, which is just a bonus. Like I said, it frequently works out like that. I have something to say, I go down on these rabbit trails, and I say shit that just sort of comes to my mind as it does, you know. But it's all, you know, pretty epic, you know. It's all true. But man, this all started with like food and shit. But anyway, you like tomato juice? You like tomatoes? Do you like tomato soup? I like tomatoes. Yeah, I've talked about that before. How like oven roasted vegetables. Oh my god! I'm sautéing these, you know, in a pan with olive oil. Not too much, you know. I get to double it up a little bit, and then I'm gonna have to add it because I need that moisture. So I'm gonna have to add some, you know, balsamic vinegar, you know, to kind of, because you can only use so much olive oil before it becomes unhealthy. So, like I said, just that's how that game works, just in general, as far as getting your nutrients, macronutrients, whatever you call them. You kind of got to bring everything together. You know, you got to get a little bit from that, a little bit from that. and if you cook it right, and either just make it up on your own or follow a cookbook, that you can. Yep, that's all, folks. It's duck season, it's rabbit season, but boy, ain't got no sense. Um, you can make some pretty awesome shit. Um, clean eating avocado. Oh shit! Yes, I do need to go to the grocery store. I need some avocados. Um, and I like to eat them just plain, with a spoon, or slice them up, put them in a salad. Woo-hoo. I actually genuinely do like eating healthy. Um, but I also like eating pizza and fucking chicken wings and shit like that. So, um, but yeah, so I like tomatoes. Just eat them. I'll eat the mushrooms and tomatoes just raw. Um, they're delicious, and I eat the stem and all that shit. It's all edible. Like even the broccoli, I cut up the stem. I cut it real into small pieces because it's like hard and nasty compared to the roughage part, right? Same thing with broccoli. But why the hell would I waste that? That's nutrition. It's volume. It's substance. It's calories. You just got to cut it up really small. Same thing like if meat is really tough, just cut it into small pieces. Um, but and if it's a bad cut of meat, cook it low and slow. That's how you make it tender. If you sear it, then it's cooked on the outside and raw on the inside, and it's hard and tough. But if you try and cook it fast, but Campbell's tomato juice. Oh my God, it tastes a lot like tomato soup, and that's how I eat tomato soup. I just tip it up, right? But the problem is, a serving is 8 fluid ounces, which is ain't shit. I mean, who the hell drinks 8 fluid ounces of anything? You know, I mean, like if you're thirsty and you need a drink of water, you're not gonna drink 8 fluid ounces. You're gonna drink well, you might drink 8, but then you're gonna like take a break and drink some more. 8 fluid ounces is a joke. Um, but so it's 30% sodium, and that's why it tastes so damn good because I got the salt or whatever in there. But oh shit, if you want to treat yourself, fuck man. But like I said, sodium. So I need to stay away from that right now, because I need to make sure my blood pressure's on point and all that. But fucking a. And over Christmas, we have a tradition, which you would be a part of if I wasn't a troll, did that sort of shit. This one complete utter fucking bullshit, which is a shame because that would be awesome. My family would love you. They'd take to you. You'd take to them. You'd make new friends out here. Just be awesome. We'd just live a happy life together. We'd start a family. But oh well. Um, it's fun to think about, though, isn't it? But Mister looks at and I I shouldn't say that shit. It's like don't say that, Mister. Faces his own mortality every day. No, no, no. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I do think about that. I mean, I think about kids. Who are 7 years old. Who are going through cancer treatment. Just what a shit deal. That would be and is. And this is I've done this for a long time, pretty much most, my kind of all my adult life. I always kind of, I do have an attitude of gratitude, but I do, in all honesty, take for granted everything that I got, and I shouldn't do that. So, and I'm gonna try and make a change on that. And like I said, with the Bible thing, and getting, more in touch with God, and this, that, But every Christmas Eve we have cheese broccoli soup and oyster soup. And I don't think I would like raw oysters, but oyster stew is fucking phenomenal. They kind of melt in your mouth, and the little foot or whatever has that little bit of chewiness, and the broth is fucking fantastic. Cheese broccoli, there's different ways to make it. I like to use a little bit of Tabasco, not Mexican hot sauce, but Tabasco.
You can make it, extra thicker. You can make it with bigger, cuts of carrots. I mean, there's different ways to make it. And when my uncle, not my uncle by blood, but the one that I would hang around with all the ranch and stuff. And the other one I am related to, but has a ranch up there. But daddy's been his old shit. But the other one, I did South fish game down, yeehaw, yeehaw, buckaroo, cowboy shit. And he liked potato soup, but we kind of stopped making that because that was like his deal. But I like potato soup. I like clam chowder. I'm one of those guys who likes fish as long as it doesn't taste like fish. So I like salmon. Salmon is phenomenal. Salmon's very high in protein. It's very good for you. But like sea bass, for example. Oh my, no, I cannot. I ate it one time, and at first I was like, "Hey, this is pretty good." And then like 3 or 4 minutes after I ate like the last piece, that like fishy taste crept up on me, and I spent the next 5 minutes just eating bread, trying to get that fucking taste out of my mouth. It's like no. But I like shellfish, and stuff. Well, if it's cooked, and stuff, clams, calamari, crab legs, lobster, stuff like that. So anyway, I'm at 26 minutes. I'm gonna post this. Then I'll go to the grocery store and come back and cook my food. Hate on life, plot my friends on the world, take everything for granted. It's getting kind of late. I was gonna go do some stuff outdoors, but I'm kind of organizing my house a little bit. Like this is my work shit. Like I have 5 days worth of the forearm protectors and stuff, and I'm just putting that in my closet, putting it away. I may or may not need this again someday, and I'm keeping all that shit, like my hard hat and all that shit. But and then I'll just sort of, waste my life and just be a pitiful, hateful, spiteful sack of shit, and think about holding you in my arms and what a wonderful life we could have, and we'd be the envy of everybody, and, and we'd make it work, and they'd be like, "How'd you guys make it work?" It's like, it's real easy. It really can't be explained, Sometimes it's a little bit give and take, Sometimes you get frustrated with each other. Sometimes you don't want to see the other person. Like I said, as the dude, you got the advantage because you know that shit. Chicks don't know shit. They're emotional. As a dude, you're practical. You can bring emotions to the table. I mean, you have them, but, you're in control of them. Chicks generally aren't. So you get to be the pirate, who's also the charmer. What spoils of war, have you conquered, I don't know, I brought you this, It's like, oh, thank you, but I don't want this, I just want you. You want to be that kind of pirate. Carr. But, anyway. And if you're the guy whose eye can't keep his eye on his head, you're out of luck. You might find you some wretched fucking wench, that you can, meet your match, stay in your lane, but anyway, unless of course you miss a butthead. What the fuck? I mean, he might not be Jack Sparrow, but he's definitely not the guy, who can't keep his glass eye in his fucking skull, you know what I mean? So I was like, shit. As far as Mrs. Butthead is concerned, she's dating Jack Sparrow. Because everybody knows that Jack Sparrow is the coolest pirate that ever lived. No, he just is. It's like, I don't know. Ooh. Anyway, I've only seen like 2 of those movies. Guess I need to get caught up on all of them. I just remember that one scene, Rum, what are you doing? She throws the bottle, it explodes. What'd you do last time? Well, last time I sat on a beach drinking rum and a ship happened. Sail by. Anyway, kind of like that scene in Lawless. I thought I walked. I don't ever want to have to carry your half-dead, lifeless body to the hospital again. So I walked.
Listen to yourself. You actually believe that shit? Anyway. 30 minutes. God damn.